Hey everyone, thanks for tuning in to Draft Lord. I'm joined by Bry the Fantasy Guy here as we recap our winners and losers of early NFL free agency. We both came up with 3 winners and we both came up with 2 losers, and we're going to jump right into it. And I'm going to throw it right off to Bry the Fantasy Guy here. Who is your number 2 loser of early NFL free agency?
Well, let's start off with my Las Vegas Raiders. They are definitely not winners in free agency right now. They had to trade Gabe Jackson, trade Hudson, and traded Trent Brown and decimated the offensive line. Luckily, they were able to get Richie Incognito back, which is a big move. But signing Kenyon Drake was just the strangest move that they've done in a long time. I just don't get it. Why bring in another running back, especially a guy like that? I just don't understand it.
Gruden must have some value in that 2-headed running back attack. I mean, that's the only real logical explanation behind it, right?
Yeah, I guess we just have so many other needs, and they didn't need to spend that money on Kenyon Drake. But I like Kenyon Drake, but it's just going to take away from Josh Jacobs. They also brought back Theo Riddick, so
Another running back.
Another running back who's a pass catcher. So Jacobs is going to get even less attempts. It's strange what they're doing out in Las Vegas. I don't know what Gruden and Mayock are up to, but it's nothing good.
You would think if you're going to invest into the running back position, which seems like very few teams in the NFL are doing these days, you would want to have a good offensive line. And like you said, they've completely dismembered that offensive line. I mean, I can't. Now it's going into my next mock draft. My first one, I had the Raiders looking into, a position that can help, maybe a pass rusher, maybe bringing in a top of the line secondary. But now it's like I feel like they're forced to address a problem that they created themselves, and that's on the offensive line.
They're they're gonna take somebody. They'll probably take, I don't know, a tight end. Who knows?
Another, another running back.
Yeah, who knows? They're gonna do something out of left field. They'll take a safety that they could have gotten round 4, and it'll just be a nightmare.
Vegas was number 3 for me on my losers. If we were going to go with 3, they would have definitely been there. But I had to pick Chicago over them as my number 2 loser. I mean, I'll give credit where credit's due. They did go all in on an offer for Russell Wilson, but the Seahawks just didn't seem interested in moving him. But the problem is that instead of Russell or really anybody else, they signed Andy Dalton. And I feel bad for Allen Robinson, who's been franchised. Is this the second time being franchised?
I believe so.
You got a possible second time being franchised. Khalil Mack there. I mean, they're just wasting the greatest years of their career in Chicago. And if you look at the whole free agency as a picture, Chicago really hasn't done anything. They haven't signed a single person worth mentioning, and they're really losing more than they bring in. I mean, that's Nagy's fired after the year. I mean, I really can't see them winning more than 3 to 4 games next season. How about you?
I don't know about that. I think Chicago wins 7, 8 games, but I don't know that they're a playoff team, especially in that division. And I just don't understand why Andy Dalton was the choice. I know they went all in on Russell Wilson. That failed, and I feel like they were just left hanging and said, all right, Andy Dalton, come on in. What did they give him? 10 million for 1 year?
I think they gave him twice as much guaranteed money as what Trubisky got in Buffalo. If I'm not mistaken. I mean, is he really that much better than Mitch Trubisky?
No, I think Trubisky at least can do some things with his legs. So to me, that's the guy I would rather have. But Chicago felt otherwise. They shipped him out the door. I mean, just look what they've done. Look at all the money they gave Nick Foles last year. How'd that work out?
Think about the resume that they have of quarterbacks that they've brought in there. It's
bad.
It's bad.
Bad.
It
they
is
gave
bad.
Mike Glennon a lot of money.
It's bad.
Like, you can't do that.
It's real bad. Brian, who's your number 1 loser in NFL free agency today?
Let me go with the Philadelphia Eagles. They have done nothing. They cut Alshon Jeffrey, Deshaun Jackson. Okay. They were both aging veterans who weren't really giving them much, always injured. Other than that, though, they're in just cap hell, so there's nothing they can do. And I don't know how good that team's going to be next year. They could finish third, maybe even fourth in that division.
Yeah, it seems like the team's really going to go as far as Jalen Hurts takes them, right? They're also my number one loser in early NFL free agency. Like you said, they've really done not a single thing, and that's because of the cap hell they're in. But they put themselves in that cap hell. They traded Carson Wentz. They had to eat a basically $34 million cap hit,
That
which
is
is
insane.
$12 million more than the record. Do you know who the record was?
No.
Jared Goff 2 weeks earlier. Okay, it's insane the money that these teams are
Oh
just
my
eating up.
God.
They've lost key players like Jalen Mills signed with the Patriots, Josh Johnson, someone else in the secondary. They lost some starters on special teams. The Zach Ertz trade drama. I mean, and
Yeah,
what's
he'll be out of there.
and what's crazy about the whole thing with Philly is all those things that we just mentioned. None of those are the worst thing to happen to Philly this offseason. The hiring of head coach Nick Sirianni is the worst thing to happen to Philly this offseason. You see
That
that press
that
conference?
press conference was it's one of the worst I've ever seen.
I mean, it's like he didn't prepare at all, or he was
Or he
stoned.
or he was extremely nervous.
I'm calling drugs. Only explanation you can really
Can't
get
do
for that.
that. Don't do that to him.
You know, I mean, they're easily, and I think we all kind of knew going into free agency that the Eagles were really going to struggle. They didn't have money. They were in this rush to trade Wentz. It's an absolute disaster in Philly, and it's crazy to see where they came from with Coach Peterson winning a Super Bowl to him throwing a game last year, the whole Carson Wentz drama, him being fired, and them hiring this other guy as a upgrade. It is. I kind of feel bad for the Philly fan base. Can't lie, I do.
Yeah, Philly, they're in rough shape, but who knows? Anything's possible in the NFC East.
That that
I
is
mean,
true. That
anything's
is true.
possible there.
I mean, yes, anything's possible. Um, if Philly wins that division, that just takes that whole phrase to a whole new level. So, but yes, anything's possible. Though, so we got our three losers. None of those teams um, had anywhere near the fortune of the winners that we're about to go with. I'll give you my first one. My number three winner for early NFL free agency is the Arizona Cardinals. I really like what they did, mainly because their coach, Cliff Kingsbury, I think he's on the hot seat. I think that team is expected to, I'm not going to say win a Super Bowl, but at least be in contention for one,
Yeah,
especially
they
with the
got to make the
quarterback that they
playoffs.
have. Right. Especially with the quarterback, especially with, I mean, they have a team to do it. And coming into the offseason, they had some needs to fill. And I really feel like they filled them. I mean, they brought in AJ Green, kind of a reclamation project, which I really like. I think it's a great signing. JJ Watt on the opposite side of Chandler Jones. They brought back Golden. I mean, they traded for Hudson, so they got a starting center, which was a really, really big hole for them there as
That's a
well.
huge move.
It is.
Great, great move. Love that move from Arizona.
I think Arizona brought in the talent that they're going to need to compete. If they don't, I think something went horribly wrong, but they certainly brought in pieces that are saying, hey, we're going for it this year. We're going to at least win the NFC West, and we're going to try to compete for the Super Bowl. And I think all of those signings kind of check off those boxes for them.
Yeah, I mean they had to. I mean they last year going 8-8 was kind of a disappointment the way they were playing early on. This year that's the toughest division in football, but they got to at least get a wild card spot. I mean, come on, how do you not get you got to get into the wild card? Have to.
Especially with the talent they have at this point.
Yeah, that's why you bring in AJ Green. That's why you bring in JJ Watt. That's why you bring in Rodney Hudson. You bring in veteran guys, and you expect them to perform and take that, help take the team to the very next step, get into the playoffs, and compete for a Super Bowl.
We'll see if it happens.
All right, so my number three team would be the Washington football team.
The Whift?
Still crazy to call them that. But I think bringing in Ryan Fitzpatrick, bringing in Curtis Samuel, two huge moves, two upgrades that they needed. They needed another receiver opposite of Terry McLaurin, and Curtis Samuel could do a little bit of everything. He can rush the ball, catch the ball, and
Versatile,
then
very.
obviously they needed a quarterback. Bring in Ryan Fitzpatrick. They made the playoffs last year at 7-9. I think Fitzpatrick can get them an extra couple wins. He's gonna throw a lot. He might throw a lot of turnovers, but he's gonna win them a bunch of games that they might not necessarily have won last year. So they also re-signed their offensive lineman Brandon Scherf. That was a great move, and they brought
It
in
was.
Lamar Miller into the backfield. Good veteran presence behind Antonio Gibson, and I'm sure J.D. McKissick will be back.
Mhm.
So I think Washington's the team to beat in the NFC East, if you ask me. And free agency did big things for them.
I agree with you on that. I mean, I love the Curtis Samuel deal. You know, like you said, he's very versatile. He's really going to help out. He's really going to help out that offense a lot. And that offense really has some good pieces. I mean, so you're adding Samuel there. You got Terry McLaurin. You got Logan Thomas, a tight end who was a fantasy stud for me for pockets of the year, but still a pretty good
He was,
talent. And they
he
got
was a
Gibson out the
quarterback that they
backfield.
converted to a tight end.
Hey,
Incredible.
he tell you what, he played well. Caught a lot
Yeah,
of touchdowns on the stretch, man. He did. He
I
caught
like
a lot.
Logan. I like Logan Thomas this year.
I think whiffed. I think the Washington football team, I read an article about Ron Rivera talking about how it's going to be tough to get a quarterback at 19. And so what that says to me is that, I mean, they're not naive to the fact that they need to draft a quarterback, right? I think somebody like Mac Jones can fall down to them, especially especially at the spot that they're at. With four quarterbacks going ahead of them, to me, it just seems like a match made in heaven. 1 year under Ryan Fitzpatrick, with all these weapons that he has on this team coming into 2022 season, I just think the right move for them to really cap off a complete free agency off season for them is going to be to draft a quarterback. And I think Mac Jones is going to be that guy.
Yeah, no, I could definitely see that, especially sitting behind Ryan Fitzpatrick for a year. It's a great guy to sit behind.
It
He's been
is.
on
Now, that's what they
been
should have done in
everywhere.
Miami, though, right? I mean, that's what they shouldn't have rushed Tua into this. They should have really rolled the Fitzpatrick show and let
They would have made the
Fitzpatrick.
playoffs.
Yep, they would have made the playoffs. It's
And then who knows?
who knows, who knows? They handled that
Anything could
wrong,
happen. Look what
and
happened. Look at Tennessee 2 years ago.
exactly.
They got hot. They went into the playoffs. AFC Championship game, ran into the Chiefs. You know how that ended. But Miami could have possibly done the same thing, especially the way that defense was playing. They kept Brian Fitzpatrick in there. They're a playoff team, and they would have been tough to beat.
Fitzpatrick has a lot to prove, I think, this season, and what is probably going to be the last season of his career, to be honest. But I do think he has a lot to prove, and I think he really wants to go out on top. I mean, I'm not saying Super Bowl, but to win that division, I think would be a real solid thing for the football team, and I think it's very possible to happen.
Yeah, I agree.
My number two team for early free agency really hasn't even signed a free agent. Doesn't mean I can't include him in here. The Tampa Bay Bucks. This team just won the Super Bowl. Brady just extended to really give them some more money to bring back some of these guys that I'm going to name. But they franchised Chris Godwin. They locked up Shaquille Barrett. They brought back Levante David. They kept Gronk. They're working on a deal for Antonio Brown. It seems like this team's coming back completely intact next season. And with Drew Brees retiring, the Panthers, you still don't know what they're going to do. I mean, they're probably going to usher in a rookie quarterback. And the Falcons, it kind of seems like the AFC East all over again for Tom Brady down south with the Bucks. And he's got his whole team intact. I mean, to
Yep.
keep everybody there just shows you the effect that Tom Brady has on any roster he's on. And just because of that, I think they've had the second best offseason so far of any team in the NFL.
Yeah, no, they were definitely in contention for me. I almost put them in there. I mean, they re-signed everybody they had to, franchise tag Chris Godwin. So bringing back a Super Bowl winning team almost fully intact. I mean, how can they not be a favorite to win a Super Bowl?
Right.
At least get there.
Essentially the same team, and they have draft picks. This team, team's just going to get better, right? It's yeah. They're
Some of their
scary
best
once again.
players are going to have another full year under their belt of a playoff run, a Super Bowl run, a Super Bowl win. Like
Mm-hmm.
they're only going to be better.
Yeah, yeah. This team, I
Pretty tough to
wouldn't
beat.
be shocked for them to be right back there next year. I wouldn't. Not shocked one bit.
Well, they'll probably host the NFC Championship game.
Incredible, huh?
It's sick. It's sick. I'm sick of it.
Well, you're gonna get at least another 5 years of it. So
It's sick. He's gonna play till he's 62 years old. I
he's gonna
promise.
he's gonna match Bill Russell. Can you imagine that?
He's gonna be older than Bill Russell. Still
It's
playing. It's insane. I don't get it.
incredible.
Good
Incredible.
for him. Good for
Who,
him.
who's your number 2 team in early NFL free agency, Bry?
My number two team would be the San Francisco 49ers.
Ooh, tell me
Now,
why.
they didn't, I mean, mostly because they were able to bring back Kyle Juszczyk, who's a huge part of that offense.
They paid him
Fullback, you had to. That is what
the
the
best.
teams that use the fullback, he's the best fullback. Does everything for them. They also re-signed Trent Williams, made him the highest paid left tackle ever,
At 32, paid him too.
but had to shore up the offensive line there. They bring in Alex Mack, the center from Atlanta. Another need on the offensive line, a veteran guy. And there's one other move they made that I can't remember off the top of my head. But even just those moves alone to shore up that offensive line that was huge for them. So I think they'll be right back in their contention for the NFC West.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you. I do have them on here. They obviously didn't make my cut of 3, but I think they made all of the necessary moves to really solidify the team. And really, they're one really good quarterback away from a Super Bowl, I think. So making sure that team is in line for a possible Deshaun Watson trade, Russell Wilson trade, or something of that sort. I think they certainly did that this offseason so far.
Oh, they re-signed Jason Verrett too, the corner. So they keep most of that the staple of the San Francisco 49ers. So Jimmy Garoppolo can at least stay healthy and keep them in games. I think that defense is going to win a lot of games, and they're going to be in there. They'll be fighting for a wild card spot.
They should be. I think replacing a guy like Sherman is a tall order, even though he's a veteran at this point. But I think that's a position they're going to address in the draft anyways. But that's certainly, I'd say, the last move I'd like to see the 49ers make is to bring in some more secondary help, because I don't think you can just lose Sherman and just not.
Oh, he means a
not
lot to
replace
that
him.
defense. He
Right.
means a lot to any defense he's on.
Right. So that to me is that last piece. And had San Francisco made a move like that now, they would have probably been in my top 3. But that's the last move I really want to see them make, aside from the quarterback, obviously. But if they did choose to ride with Jimmy, exactly like you said, if he's healthy, they should at least be a wild card team.
He took him to They were a Super Bowl team with him, healthy. So I mean, he could at least get him to the playoffs if he's
That's
healthy.
True. They just need to get back to that ground and pound game. So they need those running backs healthy. I think that's that's the number one thing for them.
They need their team to stay healthy.
In general.
Unfortunately, last year that was not the case.
Now, I don't think we haven't talked. We did talk, but now it's slipping my mind. If we agreed on our number 1 free agency, on our number 1 team for early NFL free agency, I have the New England Patriots.
We just agreed that we had one of the same top 3.
Gotcha. Okay. So maybe
which we said was New England, but we didn't have them in order yet.
Gotcha. Okay. Well, for me, number 1.
New England's number 1 for me as well.
There we go. I think it's a no-brainer. At first, the first few signings, and I know I said it to you, the Patriots really just got back to par. I mean, the roster last year was horrible. And some of their early signings, while they were big, Judon, Jonnu Smith, Henry wasn't signed yet when I made that comment, but they really just did what they had to do to get back to an even playing field. But adding all the other guys they've added to this team, I really like Nelson Aguilar. Kendrick Bourne, we'll see what we get out of him, but I really like Aguilar. I mean, I love both tight ends. We've added so much depth along the defensive line. I mean, we've brought back old guys. We've brought in new guys. I mean, we really retooled the entire roster from where our front seven was atrocious. They've completely pumped life back into it. They're still going to address, I think, the defensive line in the draft. I think there's still some guys that might be the best overall player on their line next year that are in this draft. But they really, I mean, if they were to walk into the NFL season with the exact roster they have right now, they are almost twice the team they were last year. So aside from Cam Newton, they got to figure that out still. But I'm giving them a pass for now because I don't think they're done with their quarterback search. But certainly as it is right now, they've made the most movement, and I think they've made the biggest improvement so far during early NFL free agency.
Yeah, I mean, they got to be number one. They, for one thing, bringing in a guy like Matt Judon on that defensive line, that's incredible. Great signing there. And then go if you're going to go with Cam Newton, why not give him two tight ends that can work over the middle, and he can work that short game. He doesn't always have to go deep. But if you want to go deep, you have Aguilar, who was a deep threat for the Raiders last year. Kendrick Bourne's a speedster in San Francisco if he can just stay healthy. So I think what they did on offense is just tremendous. They brought David Andrews back at center.
Which is crazy. 4-year deal.
Huge. That was a big move. They brought in Jalen Mills, the corner from Philly. So that's, another guy in the secondary there. I just think New England, that they made that team that much better. They're going to cater to Cam Newton, it seems like, for another year. No reason they can't be a wild card team. I don't think they're better than Buffalo, so I don't think they can win the division. But I think they could be a wild card team for sure.
As they are right now with Cam Newton. Listen, Cam Newton's the worst quarterback in the NFL. He showed it. It wasn't just he didn't have the weapons. It wasn't just a COVID year. Literally, you can see his mechanics his mechanics were never good. They were never good out of Auburn. They were never good out of college. It's not like this is a new thing. Cam's mechanics have always been terrible, but now that he's gotten older, he's taken a beating, he's had some injuries. His body is he just can't handle it. He just can't cut it. This is a bottom fifth tier quarterback in the NFL is Cam Newton. If he's still on the team with this roster, I mean, they almost had 9 wins last year, so I'm going to pencil him in for nine wins this year with a different quarterback. Deshaun Watson, Sam Darnold, Gardner Minshew, any other serviceable quarterback, the New England Patriots could win the East again.
I don't think so. I don't think Gardner Minshew is still going to give them enough to beat Buffalo for the division. Buffalo's too good. Josh Allen, Stephon Diggs, there's no way.
Buffalo is very good. Buffalo's very good. It's not going to be an easy thing to do, but if you give us one of those upper echelon quarterbacks, this is with Bill, with the hunger to win after seeing Tom Brady win a Super Bowl after leaving New England.
They had to kill him.
Oh my God. Did it ever?
That's eating him alive. That is eating him alive every single second he is awake.
Every second. Because
next year.
He bet against Tom Brady. Tom Brady bet against Bill. And Tom won, man. Tom won, and it's
Tom terrific, did it.
And it's eating at Bill, and that's why I think this year, I mean, you see it. You see the spending. Okay, you see the moves. They made a lot of trades too. They're not really talked about as much, but they've made deals too. I mean, and they really haven't given up a lot. They've actually gotten some picks back in their deals. They are as aggressive as I've ever seen in my 20 plus years of fandom. He's all in, and there's no way he's going to roll out a product that could potentially win another 7 games. That's why I see it as a near impossibility that Cam Newton is our starting quarterback. Still on week 18 now, right? We're going to be at 17 games.
Crazy, 17 games.
Week 18. I don't see it. I don't see it.
I don't know. I think they're catering that offense to what Cam can do. And I think with that defense, back to what it was, adding Matt Jude on there, I think they could win 10 games and make a run at a playoff spot easily, especially now that there's 7 teams that get in. That extra wild card spot, they'll be right there. I would almost guarantee they make the playoffs.
Well, either way, once again, for the 22nd consecutive year, the biggest stories in the NFL are going to be Bill Belichick and Tom Brady until they're both no longer
it's
playing.
we're over it.
Well, we covered it. Everybody, thanks for tuning in to Draft Lord. I was joined today by Bry the Fantasy Guy, the one and only Bry the Fantasy Guy. We covered our winners and losers of early NFL free agency. You got them. Tune in next time. Thanks for watching.